All right, back with another What I Watched This Month. This is part two of this video. I actually uploaded part one yesterday, so check that out if you haven't already, but you can obviously watch these out of order. It's just getting through the second part. I watched 31 movies in 31 days. That's a lot of movies, so I had to break this up into multiple parts. Also, follow me on Letterboxd if you want. Jackson Kruger is my username, so check that out if you're interested. But yeah, let's get into my thoughts on several movies. First, I watched M. M is, of course, the 1931 German classic that it's hard to honestly not be blown away by some of the filmmaking, in 1931 that is, putting movies made now to shame nearly 100 years later. Really impressive stuff. Again, there were parts of this movie that did kind of, I thought, drag on a little bit for me personally. Maybe if on a second watch, I won't feel that way. But the great parts were indeed incredible and really a fascinating story. So yeah, 7 out of 10 for me. Then I watched Hundreds of Beavers, which again, it feels almost a little weird to give Hundreds of Beavers a higher rating. But again, my rating is not this is how good the movie is. My rating is simply a reflection on my experience with it. And Hundreds of Beavers was just a lot of fun. I made a video on it where I talked about some negatives, but mostly positives with this movie. Really a blast. If you have the quick elevator pitch, it's essentially like Looney Tunes mixed with like video game logic and it's live action, which is just really fun. So yeah, check that one out. And then I saw Madam Web, which yeah, it's a bad movie. I just know that basically every single YouTuber on the planet has given their, in-depth thoughts as to why they consider it a bad movie, and they're right. I mean, what's interesting about it is anytime I go into watching a movie like this, what I'm kind of expecting is I want to know, okay, where's the flaw? What went wrong with this movie? What's really interesting about it is there's just a lot of just bad parts, just individual. It's just bad. That's kind of simply how I can put it. I didn't think there was some one major flaw. In fact, I do think there are parts of this movie that you could have made good. It's kind of like a car without a working engine in a sense. You can still sell it for parts, it feels like. I think the concept of having a hero that can see the future, but not always, so it doesn't make them overpowered, can just sometimes tell what's going to happen. That's a cool concept to me, and I wish it was just explored in a better movie, to be honest. So, yeah, it was just, every part of it was not great. Writing wasn't good. Acting, it felt like everyone was acting in a different movie. Didn't seem like there was clear direction. Some of the camera techniques, they would do this succession, zoom in, but they only did that on one scene. So why was that the one scene they were doing it in? Didn't understand that. Again, not a great movie. And honestly, I was expecting it to be a funny 1 out of 10, and there was some humor to be had, but it wasn't the funniest bad movie I've ever seen or anything like that. So, not even really one I would massively recommend as a so bad it's good. But I guess it can get the job done if you really like bad movies. But there's better bad movies out there, I guess is what I would say. Then I watched the 1987 Catherine Bigelow film Near Dark, which is a really cool concept, actually. It's kind of like this gritty vampire movie. The idea is it's a really grounded vampire movie. What if vampires actually were real? How would it work? And the difficulties you'd have to go through just to stay alive, and how much it would suck to be a vampire if it was real. All of that stuff. That was really cool. I just found the movie to be a little bit kind of corny to me, to be honest. I didn't really care about any of the characters. That was disappointing. Really like the idea behind it. It just not a movie that fully worked for me. Then I watched Modern Times, the Charlie Chaplin movie. It actually took me I broke this up into chunks, which might be what I start doing with these kind of movies. I haven't watched a ton of silent films like this. It was interesting. It was actually really well done and really fun at times. I just don't know if I can keep my attention for an hour and a half watching something like this. Perhaps if I watch more of these, I'll be able to do it. But I'm usually interested, but then after 30 minutes, I'm kind of ready to move on, which is, again, probably user error more than anything. But yeah, still very entertaining. And I've watched a lot of Buster Keaton shorts before, and I'm definitely looking forward to checking out more Charlie Chaplin, as I did think this was a really fun watch, and actually was meaningful too. It was saying something. It's not just slapstick comedy. There's meanings behind it, which I thought was really, really cool. And you don't really talk about that too much with this with movies like Modern Times, or I guess with most like slapstick comedies. You talk about it with like The Great Dictator with Chaplin, but yeah, I just thought this was a fun one. Then I saw the David Lynch movie, The Straight Story, which it's crazy to think David Lynch made this movie, but David Lynch gets 2 10 out of 10s this month for me, because I talked about Mulholland Drive on part 1 of this video. Straight Story, yeah, I loved it. I thought it was great. It is pretty much just him riding on a tractor from one state to the other and then taking breaks to talk to people. Like, that pretty much is the whole movie. But I had a good time with it. I enjoyed all the conversations. I liked the character. Thought it was heartwarming and fun. So, yeah, 10 out of 10 for me. And then back-to-back 10 out of 10s, I saw Uncut Gems in theaters when they're doing the IMAX re-releases of all these, AMC, or AMC is doing it for all the A24 movies. Yeah, awesome. It's the best. I love Uncut Gems. I think it's great. I keep considering putting it in my best movies list. Maybe one day I will. Not quite there yet. But that moment, I'm not going to spoil it, but there's a moment towards the end of the movie. We all know what I'm thinking of. And just being in the crowd, I know what's coming. A lot of the people in the crowd don't know what's coming. It's great. I watched it with Stephanie. She was not thrilled with the intensity and the anxiety, but also thought that it was really well done. She appreciated the movie, but also was stressed out the whole time, which was, I think, what it's going for. So, yeah, I love Uncut Gems. I think I have it on Criterion, actually. It's somewhere. I think it's in the other room or something, so let's just move on to, I watched Furiosa after that, a Mad Max saga, which was a very fun movie as well. It wasn't quite the 10 out of 10s run that I had been on, but still a really enjoyable film, as what I liked about it a lot was just the, really the action sequences. That's still my favorite part of George Miller. I think that's the best side of things. People keep saying, well, they couldn't have just gone. I made a whole review on it, so you can check that out if you want to. People keep saying, well, they couldn't have done just retread of Fury Road, and that's probably true. They probably had to make it like this. I wouldn't have minded to see a retread of Fury Road. I really like Fury Road, but I was really interested in this one as well. And then I saw Challengers, which I actually believe I put these out of order. I think I rated these out of order. I think I saw Challengers first, but I watched them back to back in the theater. I was really impressed with Challengers. I didn't expect much going in. And again, another movie I have a full review on the channel, so I'll keep this short. But yeah, I thought it was just a really entertaining movie and a really unique way to tell a story that I haven't fully seen before. And if you do something I haven't fully seen before, I'm usually going to give you some extra credit. And then I saw Alfred Hitchcock's 1948 movie Rope, which is, if you haven't heard of it, this is a movie that is shot as though it is all in one take. It is similar like Birdman in the sense of it's, not actually all in one take, but just looks like it is. Although I have to say, some of the cuts in Rope are very obvious. I mean, the camera will essentially go to it's like, it'll go like this and then go like that for a second and then comes back. And it's like, okay, I think you might have cut there. I think I can figure that one out on my own, thanks Alfred Hitchcock. But still, it, again, for 1948, incredibly impressive. They were able to pull all it off. Really good acting given that, and honestly really good blocking. It never felt like boring. It never felt bland. They consistently were moving the camera around, moving the people around. So even though it all takes place in one room and is all in one shot, you never feel that when you're watching it. And the story, it's an allegory for being gay. That's what the story is, which is interesting because obviously they couldn't come out and say that in 1948. But I think there's, watching it, it's almost hard to view it as anything other than that. That being said, the story itself wasn't the most gripping for me. I still gave it a positive review, but it wasn't my favorite Hitchcock. And then I watched Emma. This is another, Stephanie likes these kind of movies. This is the 2020 version of it. These aren't my thing. I did enjoy this one, though, for what it's worth. These just aren't my kind of movie, so I won't spend forever on it. If this is your kind of movie, you probably really enjoyed it. Just not my thing. And then I watched Howl's Moving Castle, another Studio Ghibli movie, and another one that I really did enjoy. although it is, again, one of those things where it's like, I think you're going for more deeper meanings here, and I think I just missed some of them. Like, I don't think I fully got everything the movie was going for. If you haven't seen it, it's a fascinating movie where essentially it's a young girl, a witch comes by and makes her old, and then she goes into a castle that moves. That's the pitch. And like most Studio Ghibli movies, things can get very unique, and realism can be shattered, things like that. But even with me, I don't think I fully picked up on everything, and I want to do some more research into what some of the stuff means. I really enjoyed it just for being able to watch the movie and enjoying it from that perspective. So yeah, 6 out of 10 for me. Another one I would recommend. Yeah. Then I watched the Denis Villeneuve movie Incendies, which is a French language movie that is a really powerful one. This is a dark movie, and this is one that many consider to be a masterpiece. I'm not quite there, I don't think, but I do really think that what makes this movie work is how grounded it feels. So then when it goes to these moments of extreme violence or extreme shock, it really does work. The ending felt a bit too twisty for me. I like what it's going for, and doing some more research in my initial Letterboxd review of it, I kind of said, I don't know if what was the point for it, but after thinking about it, I do think there is a point, and I read someone bring up what feels like there was a point to all of it, although I don't think it's super strong in terms of the twist. I'm being vague because I don't want to spoil anything if you haven't seen it. But yeah, if you don't mind dark movies and you like kind of a mystery, this is certainly one for you. And then I rewatched Mad Max Fury Road. I gave it a 9 out of 10. It does go on a bit long for me, I feel like, of just like doing the same thing over and over again. That is kind of my one critique towards like the second half. I do eventually kind of start to check out a little bit, but like that's my minor critique on an otherwise amazing movie. The stunt work in this is fantastic. Just the adrenaline. I do love the idea of let's just make a car chase the whole movie. Totally works for me. The look is incredible. I do have to say, I started. So I owned this movie on Blu-ray, but I started watching it on streaming just because like I was sitting on a couch and didn't want to get up, and like the look is not as good on streaming. It's part of why I like physical media is I just feel like streaming can be so hit or miss sometimes depending on the service that I wanted to just be able to watch the actual thing on Blu-ray, so that's what I did. And then I watched In a Violent Nature, which I considered making a whole review on. I decided not to do that, but this was not a movie that really worked for me. There is the little heart next to it that I didn't click the heart. It's an empty heart, I guess, a broken heart, if you will. I don't know. I forgot to crop that out. But yeah, In a Violent Nature was not a movie that really worked for me at all. It's one that the idea behind it, so I thought it was like, oh, here's a cool idea of it's a slasher movie, but told through the perspective of a slasher. And unlike how I think most people would do it, which is, okay, you make the slasher like a character, you give them more of a reason, you give them stakes. It's like, no, this is a mindless killer slasher. Like it's totally stereotypical, but we're still just telling you through the perspective. So there is some like slowly walking into woods, because that's what slashers do in slasher movies. They slowly walk through the woods and that stuff. As the movie went along, though, it either didn't commit to that premise, or that was never really the premise to begin with, and it just thought that would be a cool thing to do. It felt like a parody early on. I'm like, oh, this is kind of funny. Like it's like supposed to be humorous. Towards the end, I don't think it was supposed to be humorous. I think it was just kind of bad in parts. I don't think it was great. I don't know. Some of the scenes just really didn't love. The movie's called In a Violent Nature, so you can't really make a critique of it being too violent, but there was like one scene in particular that was like a 4-minute like uncut shot of just like this incredibly graphic violence, and it's just kind of like why? Like, what do you like? The crowd, which was usually a pretty bubbly crowd and enjoying the movie, got a lot quieter during that part and never really came back. So I think that was a mistake. I think that they went a bit too overboard there, and I don't know. Again, I like the idea of a slow burn horror movie. I love slow burn movies. They're great. This one, that was probably one of my favorite parts of the movie was the slow nature of it, because I feel like a lot of people critiquing it are like, oh, well, it was boring. I don't mind if your movie is slow. That's cool. I like that, but that's not my critiques with this movie. I just didn't think it was that that well done. And I think other than some really interesting gore, which, hey, if that's your thing, check it out. Gore, if you like gore, you'll like this movie. But I didn't, gore is kind of something that doesn't ruin a movie for me, but doesn't really make it either. So, and especially when it's so gratuitous, I think it can lose some people. And even for me, I'm kind of like, I'm not like, ew, I'm just like, what are we doing here? And also, it looked really fake too, like that specific scenes. So I think that's gonna, I think I probably would have given it a higher rating if they cut that scene out, but I'm still not sure if I would have given it anything more than like a 5. But then as a palate cleanser, I watched 3:10 to Yuma, which is one of the best movies ever. It's great. Not one of the best movies. Well, you could argue it's one of the best movies ever. It's at the very least a great movie. It's a 1957 film, and it's just so thrilling. It's really thrilling, where the idea behind it is essentially there's a family man who they don't have money, and because he doesn't have money, like, he goes to town trying to see if he can just borrow some money from someone. The guy says, sorry, I can't do it. But then what happens is that there's essentially this gangster that is captured, and they need help getting him on the 3:10 to Yuma train. Like, that's what they need help with. And so they're going to pay money for people that are willing to take on this very dangerous task. So our protagonist agrees to take on the task. And from that point forward, there is this game of cat and mouse between the gangster and our hero as to, the gangster's trying to pay off our hero. Say, hey, if I give you this money, will you decide to, let me free? That kind of thing, which is interesting. I like that part just in itself. But it even progresses from there, and it was just a really awesome watch. So, yeah, definitely one I recommend. 9 out of 10. I'm very high in 3:10 to Yuma. I thought it was a blast. And then finally, The Fall Guy, which is a movie that just didn't fully work for me. It felt like it was very like, hey, isn't it funny? It's a movie about movies, so we're making it clear that it's a movie about, look at all the fun in meta jokes that we're making. And I'm kind of just like, it's really hard to pull that off. I made a whole video on this already. Check it out if you haven't. But it's hard to pull off. I think that it was a very funny movie, The Fall Guy, but unfortunately, I kind of wish that it didn't do some of the meta stuff and kind of took itself a bit more seriously. I think I would have had a better time, but that's a personal preference thing. So, yeah. That's it. That's what I watched this month. A lot of movies to talk about. Those are my thoughts on all of them. What do you think? Have you seen any of these movies? What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.